Hey everyone, welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to my new gravel bike, the 3T Exploro. In this video, I'm going to go through three things for you. First, why I chose the 3T Exploro for my gravel bike. Second, some of the modifications I've made since getting the 3T Exploro. And finally, a little bit of a review now that I've put about 1,000 miles on it to give you an idea of some of my thoughts, things I like about it, some things I don't like about it. So, thanks for sticking around through the video. To give you some insight on why I purchased the 3T Exploro, I had a few things in mind that were must-haves when I was searching for a gravel bike. I wanted through axles, front and rear, 12mm, because that's becoming the standard. I wanted it to be 2x compatible because between the road rides and gravel rides that I do, I tend to manage a higher speed and less of the steep technical terrain that you see elsewhere. I wanted good tire clearance and the ability to run both 650B and 700C wheels. And I wanted a more road-oriented geometry with like a shorter head tube, be able to get the bars down low in the front and get a more aero position. And one of the things that was not a requirement on my list, but was definitely a plus, is the aero tube shaping of the Exploro here. A lot of people have certain things that they want to see on gravel bikes, things like eyelets for fenders or additional rack mounts, things that are not important to me because I'm not typically one that's going to go out in all kinds of nasty weather and need full-length mud guards, and I don't commute with any significant frequency on it. And I also don't do any bike packing, so the additional mounts and bosses aren't as important to me. However, being from Kansas, I will get into some gravel racing, and having the aerodynamic advantage and the lighter weight of carbon fiber is going to be advantageous for that. So I'm not sponsored in any way, nor am I independently wealthy, so being on a budget is something that I'm always mindful of. So with that, the 3T Exploro, while it's on the premium end of the spectrum, this particular version, the 3T Exploro Pro, which was outfitted with the Shimano 105 group set, was a tremendous value. And getting the nice aerodynamic carbon fiber frame and fork and all of the features that I mentioned previously is a really good deal for the dollar spent on this. Because this particular model of the 3T Exploro was on the budget end of the spectrum for the options that they have available, the original wheels that came on it were a set of Shimano RS170 wheels, which, despite being durable, were quite heavy. I believe about 2,100 grams, and they were very narrow at 17C internal, which is it's acceptable for the 37C tires that I have on here, but it's very restrictive. So one of the first upgrades I made was moving to the Hunt 4-season gravel disc wheels here. Tremendous value, great wheel set, about 1,700 grams in weight, so shed quite a bit there. Plus it's got a 20mm internal width, which is much better for the larger volume tires that I'll run on this. And with that, I also did upgrade the brake rotors to the Ultegra, primarily for looks, if I'm honest, because I think they just look great. Another modification that I made was the crankset. Because I'm a rather short fellow, I typically run 165mm cranks, and as with most bikes, even in my size range, they come spec'd with 170mm cranks. After riding with those for a little while, it became apparent that 165 is definitely my length. So it came with the Praxis Alba aluminum crankset in 4832 rings. I went ahead and upgraded to the Praxis Zayante carbon with the 4832 rings as well. And that 4832 gear combination with the 11 to 34 rear cassette is perfect for the type of riding that I do. The only climbs that I haven't been able to ascend with this gearing have been the more mountain bike oriented trails with really steep sections in those. In the back, I did upgrade to the Ultegra RX rear derailleur because it does have a clutch mechanism for those off-road ranges. Up in the cockpit, still got the 105 levers. I did swap over the 3T 40 millimeter bar to my Zipp 40 millimeter carbon fiber bar. The carbon fiber adds a little bit of vibration dampening, and I also did change the stem over to a longer Zipp Service Course stem as well, with the integrated Garmin cockpit on that. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know I like the Selle Italia SLR Boost saddle, which I do have on this one as well, although it is not the Kit Carbonio really lightweight thin padding version. Being as this will be off-road a fair bit, I do have the endurance gel padded version of that saddle on here. So I'm having spent a good chunk of time on this bike now, about 1,000 miles or so. I've got some good thoughts on it that I'd like to share with you. First and foremost, it's a really good bike. In comparison to my ultra stiff aero road bike, it's not quite as stiff. The bottom bracket area does have a bit of flex, noticeable when it's on the trainer. You can actually see it shift a little bit, whereas with my aero bike, there's none of that at all. And you can actually feel it on the road as well when you stand up out of the saddle and really match the pedals. You can feel a little bit of that sponginess. Now, whether that translates to more comfort on the gravel roads, I'd like to say that it does, because it is a really plush ride. With the 37C WTB Riddlers that I have on here, on my first gravel ride, I had them pumped up to about 50 psi of pressure, front and rear, and I just felt awful afterwards because it was way too rough and beat me up. However, playing around with the pressures a little bit, I settled on about 35 to 40 in the rear, about 30 to 35 in the front, and that makes for a very comfortable ride, which really soaks up some of those big chunky gravel roads that we have around here. Now on to some of the more specific aspects about the 3T Exploro here that aren't that great. First and foremost for me is the seat post here. The seat post itself isn't bad, but this diff lock mechanism up here, while I was able to get it adjusted just fine and it hasn't budged for me at all, one of the big problems for me, big round mechanism in here actually hits my saddle as it flexes down. You can see a little bit of flex. It hits right on that diff lock mechanism, which definitely takes away from the comfort. The next thing specific to the 3T Exploro frame that absolutely gives me the biggest gripes, bar none, is the hang loose rear derailleur. Now I'm not sure if it's going to be easier to operate with a rear derailleur that has a lockout system. It's a good possibility that would, but without that, trying to get this lined up and held together, lining up the cassette and the disc brake just makes it an absolute nightmare to take it on and off of the trainer, which is one of the things I like to do. And if I were to be changing a flat out in the field, it would be awful to try to work that. So I wish that that was a fixed derailleur hanger. Another standout feature of this Exploro frame is this flip-top cap where it stores all the cables. A lot of people don't seem to like this. However, given the fact that it's not an entirely integrated system, I think this works really well. I have yet to do any maintenance or work that requires me to remove that and work on the cables, but if I have any troubles when working on it, I'll be sure to post a follow-up review, or at least add a comment in there following. We know it's not a proper review video without a weight check. Let's drop it on the scales. Keep in mind, this is with bottle cages, not light ones, power pedals, tubes in the wheels, and Garmin mount out on the front. .81 kilograms. So overall, I really enjoy the bike. Looking forward to wearing out these non-tubeless compatible WTB Riddlers, which you can see I have my Tubolito tubes on there. After those are worn out, I'm definitely going to switch it over to tubeless, as the hump wheels are tubeless compatible. If you have any questions about the Exploro, drop them in the comments. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Otherwise, keep an eye on the channel, because as I do upgrades, modifications, and maybe some rides on this, I'll detail it and put some videos together out in the future. Thanks. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you like the video and subscribe to keep up to date with it.